Hello and welcome to the next upload in my new series that I am continuing. Today we are looking at the fifth house in astrology. So this is a video series that I have started where I am going to be giving you very straightforward and detailed, informative and easy to understand videos that really explain the houses, and so far we have done a few. If you'd like to scroll back, you can have a look. We've done the 12th house. I think we did the second house, and I thought let's just get on with doing the fifth. So if you're new to my channel, please smash the subscribe button, and I am doing private spiritual consultations, which you can easily book me for those, where you can get me on the phone and we can have a chat. And I also offer, which is really my bread and butter, which is what I'm coming back to for the next couple of videos, is astrology readings. So I do astrological detailed birth chart reports. So yes, and I'm still having 25% off on my 30-minute readings. They're the ones that sell out the quickest. And I do have spots available for the month of October. So that being said, please go ahead and book a detailed consultation with me. It is a recorded reading, so I send you back a link and then you keep the recording and you can come back to it as many times as you would like to. And I also take in questions as well. So if you'd like me to focus on different areas of your life, maybe just a general reading is what you're after, love, finance, health, compatibility, anything like that, send all the questions in and I will give it my absolute best shot and tear up your chart. So today we are looking at the houses in particular. We're looking at the house of self-expression, the passion of the fifth house. So the fifth house in astrology is ruled by the sun, and the sun is the ruler of Leo. So it's all about passion, energy, pleasure, romance, abundance. And it's really about the identity of the self coming out into the world. When we look at all the other houses, when we look at the orders of the houses, the house before the fifth house was the fourth house, which was a video that I have covered, which is about the home. It's about the internal world. So it's about reflection and security and family and tradition. And then we move into the fifth house, where all of these feelings and all of these inner thoughts and all of the inner workings of a person are now forming in an identity, where someone is expressing themselves in the outer world. So the fifth house is the house that rules the stage. It rules being seen. It's a point in a human's life, depending on your placements, whether you've got a lot of fifth house placements, or maybe you're a Leo, maybe you've got your moon in Leo, maybe you've got rising in Leo. Fifth house energy is full on. It's fire, and fire needs to burn. It needs to burn through things. It needs to be seen. Fire illuminates things. So the fifth house is all about passion and energy and someone who knows what they want. You know, I don't come across a lot of Leos or fifth house people that are kind of like don't have a strong sense of identity. Leos know what they want. They're going after it, and it's admirable. You know, the fire signs do that. Aries wants to win. Aries wants to come first, and it wants to push its physical presence into the world in the first house. Sagittarius is the vagabond. It's the 12th house or type 9th house people, which are all about the spiritual, guru, the mystics, the philosophical teachers that come through with passion, a little bit like cowboys and like an old agitated man and a cowboy merged together. And then Leo is the child. Leo is the adolescent in astrology and in the fire signs. So this is about your inner child. It's about joy. It's about finding things that bring you joy. You know, a lot of Leo people like to have joy, whether they're playing video games, whether they're doing something fun, they're getting out there on their skateboard, they're going swimming. They have to move. Leos are I'm a bit biased because I do love a Leo. But Leos like to have a good time. They like to be having fun. So this is where the fun in a chart comes into play. The fifth house is about creativity and it's about self-expression. And so what interests do you have? You know, what are you interested in? What passion do you have? Because that passion, our passion in a human life is where our purpose is. So when someone has a lot of passion in something, that's a key indicator to where their purpose will be. It's an indicator to where their gifts will be. I often think of the saying, you know, it's not hard if you enjoy it. You know, it's not a hard thing to do if you enjoy doing something. You know, so it's like our level of interest in something will determine our joy of it. You know, if you change the dial, the frequency in your head to, rather than having to go to the gym every day or go for that run or go for that swim or whatever, and you shifted your perspective into, if I do this, then I get this. Or if I do this for the fun and the joy of it more, that will shift your perspective into a place where you're not in resistance to something. Because when we're in resistance to something, that makes it like mentally harder. So when we're just surrendering in, we're in flow state, I like to call it flow state, and I'm enjoying it, that's where I do my best work. All right. So think of it that way. So when we think about the stage and we think about the fifth house, it's about bringing forth the part of yourself that needs to be seen. You know, a Leo, the sun illuminates and it needs to be seen. It's got an expression. It's got creativity that it needs to put out into the world. So also think about it from a point of view of, who are we doing this for? You know, often artists will ask, I ask myself this all the time, like my midheaven's in Leo, but it's like, am I doing this for myself because I really enjoy making art or making content like on YouTube, like now? Or am I doing it, you know, am I doing it for other people to consume it, or am I doing it for myself? And I think the answer really is both. You know, if you were the last person on the planet and you're an artist, would you still make art? Well, maybe not, you know, because it's a bit of an infinity loop where it goes, artists take their projection of what they see of the world or their interpretation of the world, transmute it through themselves, and then push it back out into the world in a way that is like a commentary. It's like a bit of a commentary of the world. You know, really good art to me is storytelling. It's telling us something that we don't know. All right. So that's what art in its, you know, primal state, I guess. And I mean, the technical definition, which I was looking at before this, I decided to do this podcast about the fifth house today, is that art is said to be the relationship that one has with something that they're connecting with, whether it's visual or whether it's performative. It's the relationship that we have in our head towards something that we're connecting with. Okay, so that could be anything. It's pretty open to interpretation. So it's how it makes you feel. And I think that's one of the things I've learned in life just generally is people don't necessarily remember us, you know, spouting long-winded, you know, chats about like, you know, this, and this, and this, and this in the past and all this data, like slabs of information, what humans really remember is how we make them feel. That transcends everything. I think I did do a video last year or the year before talking about this in a relationship. When someone comes home to you and they're choosing to be with you, it's because of how you make them feel. That's why they're coming home to you. That's why they're still married to you. The reason the person is home waiting for you to come home is because of how you make them feel when you walk through the door, how you make them feel. That's why they're still there. It's really that simple. Okay, so feelings of how others make us feel and how we express ourselves, that is the fifth house. All right, so, but in terms of the fifth house, it's a lot of creativity happens here. All right. So a lot of creation happens here, a lot of play, a lot of creation is like trial and error, and a lot of play. You've got to be in that kind of, that's why a lot of logical people that aren't very emotional, they don't really create because they can't. They're not allowing themselves, or maybe they're not hardwired enough to let themselves go into their emotional state of expression. Some people just don't have that level of expression. A lot of Virgos can imitate. Like, I'll give you an example. There are particular combinations with signs like the Virgo, which a lot of like sixth house placement coming out of the fifth house can copy emotion and imitate it outside to the world, but doesn't necessarily feel it in the inside. All right. So I hope that makes sense. So this is where people with entertainment needs come in. This is the consumption of entertainment. It's the consumption of like enjoyment, and it can also be about small businesses. Sometimes can happen in the fifth house as well. Speculative businesses, grounded businesses. But yes, it's about a little bit of, working with a team sometimes, being a leader, putting yourself out there, asking for what you want. If you don't ask for what you want and you don't state your claim of what you want, then how is anyone going to know what you want? If you don't ask, you don't get, so it's about expression. So it's not about like closing your throat chakra and not saying anything. It's about going, oh, it's about screaming. It's about being loud. It's about being dramatic. All of this is fifth house stuff. So wherever this is sitting in your chart, when you look up your chart and you see a lot of fifth house placements, or maybe a lot of fifth house cusps, you'll see that a lot of the interests that you have in your life are quite like exaggerated. A lot of exaggeration can happen in the fifth house. A lot of exaggeration can happen in the ninth house as well with Sagittarius. They tend to over-exaggerate at times, but this is theatrical. So it's about you coming out into the world. Here I am. This is what I want. I want to be seen and I want to be loved. The fifth house rules the heart. It rules matters of love. It does rule matters of romance and giving your heart over to someone. Leo's ruling body part is the heart. That's why they had like the cowardly lion. It's about finding courage. Leos are brave. They put themselves out there. They make moves. They don't want to live a small life of hiding and appeasing other people to fit in. Leos protect. They get out there and they do the work. If something's wrong, Leo stands up and says no. And that is the brave strength of the Leo. Leos can sharpen their claws, and also coming out of the fourth house into the fifth house, it also looks at children. So when I see a lot of high placements in the fifth house, this generally does indicate a maternal path in a human life. So there'll generally be a father, or they'll become a mother at some stage within their life. It's part of their journey. And they are very protective of their kids. Leos and the fifth house placement people, you can step on a lion's tail, but if you fuck around with their kids, they'll kill you. All right. Same with Cancerians as well. They're very nurturing. So whatever sign you're sitting in proportion to the fifth house will determine how it plays out, how that creativity comes through your expression. So if it, for example, let's say if it was Cancer, how a Cancer person, say you've got a Cancer sun in the fifth house, that means they would be very nurturing in the way that they express themselves. They'd be very emotional in the way that they communicate, potentially looking back at the past a lot and talking about the past and bringing it out into that fifth house space where they talk about a lot of different things from the past, very protective of their children. But yes, if it was a very high degree in the fifth house, it is very likely that there will be a continuation, or it is a signifier of a family or procreation. Replication happens in the fifth house. Because when we procreate, we are it's not just procreation, it's replication of a legacy of your DNA that's out in the world after you're not here, after you're gone. The fourth house and the fifth house does that. All right. So yes, in terms of astrology, these placements do indicate a lot of that very strong calling that will play out in someone's life about how they express themselves and how they choose to live on in the world. You know, if it was in the ninth house, in a Sagittarius ninth house, say, for example, Sagittarius sun playing out in a fifth house, Leo in a high degree, well, that would be someone that would be very cultured, lots of travel. They would be someone that would need to express themselves to get to the truth of things. Sagittarius's idolization is always based on what is the bluntest truth. Sagittarius is chasing God, chasing the meanings of life, the philosophical thinking of life. And if that was playing out in the fifth house, they may even be publishing books, or they might even be doing like a YouTube channel, or they might be expressing themselves through theater, through performance, you know. So how it plays out is all determined by the sign that it's ultimately, you know, sitting in. So it's all hidden meanings, you know, they all play out in whatever way that they do. And so when I see fifth house stuff, I just see someone that needs to be creative, you know, that needs to be the center. A lot of fifth house placement people in a relationship really kind of put themselves in the middle. You know, a lot of them sometimes can be hard to deal with because the relationship will be very focused on them, on what they do, whether they're, you know, performing something, or they're weightlifting, or they're going to the gym, or they are the star in the house. And sometimes I remember, I'll share a story. I remember when I was in my early 20s, I did live with a friend for a while, and I just get along really well with Leos. Like I get along with Aries, and I get along really well with Leos. I'm a fire sign, I'm a Sag. So we kind of like, let's just get on with it. Let's keep moving. Let's get on to the next thing. It's all an adventure. We don't want to sit around and wallow in shit. We want to get on with it. And my friend at the time, my best friend at the time, her name was Shannon. And I remember I did live with her and her mum and her dad and her sister for, I think it was like about 5 or 6 months briefly. I stayed with them. And the energy in that house was so electric, and it's so infectious because they were all Leos. The dad was a Leo, the mum was a Leo, her sister was a Leo, she was a Leo. It's like everyone was a Leo. So the fights, when they fought, it was so fiery and intense and dramatic and just so over the top, right? And then you'd think, oh my goodness, like how are we gonna recover from this? And then the next day it was like it never happened. And so Leos get over things really quick in terms of like spats. They'll battle it out like in Aries, they'll have it out, and then after it's done, it's done. What a Leo or a fifth house placement person won't want is someone who sulks, someone who says they're over it, and they just keep bringing it up and won't let go. So a lot of light energy doesn't like to hold on to dark things. You know, Leo people, you don't come across a lot of really like fucked up, depressed Leos. If a Leo is depressed in their life, or if a Sagittarius is depressed in their life, it's more than likely because they feel trapped. And there's nothing more sad than a shamed Leo. Leos or people with fifth house placements refuse to be shamed. So to publicly shame a Leo and disgrace them, so that's one of the only blows that some Leos can never recover from. All right. So yeah, so fifth house placements, it's really awesome. And they need to make things. They've got this itch to perform. They're the kid that's like, mummy, look at me. Mummy, I'm jumping in the pool. She's like, yes, darling, that's good. Mummy, I can tap dance. Mummy, I can sing. It comes very innately from their inner child. They've got this fierce confidence that's quite unshakable. They want an audience, front and center, in the middle of the bloody theater group. They're right in the middle. They're right in there. And they want to be the main character. They don't want to have lots of low lines in the play. They want to be the one holding the play. Ultimately, I think a good example of a fifth house placement from a character probably would be Harry Potter, maybe. I think Daniel Radcliffe is a Leo. So a lot of that energy that he has went into the character of Harry Potter, which is a hero. It's an underdog, and it's someone who never loses faith in their own light. And I think the message that J.K. Rowling was expressing through that character was very Leo-like. I think J.K. Rowling is a Leo, so that would make sense, because she said once in an interview that the best writing comes from writing the character of you through into your main character, or into the character of you in it. If that makes sense? So I think it's like a Leo is someone that, he'll have the final battle, but he's got to go through the hero's journey a little bit. He's got to be humbled. He's the kid underneath a lot of fifth house placements I can say in terms of their career, they start off late. A lot of late placement can happen in the fifth house if they're oppressed. But you have to look at their Saturn placements to see what's the lid that's holding that down. And they bounce back. They come back strong. They'll lose everything and they'll get it all back again. Sometimes a little bit of gambling can happen in the fifth house, like taking risks, overextending yourself in matters of work can happen. Can also happen in the ninth house with Sagittarius as well. But yes, they love like movies and entertainment and games, sporting events. Most people that are in the Olympics are all usually fire signs. I've noticed as well. I think that was publicly said years ago, actually. A lot of athletes and being physically fit, very committed to their sport, all plays out in the fifth house. Even going to a sporting arena match to see your football team or your cricket team play is all fifth house stuff. It's all entertainment. It's fun. There's a lot of fun. So in astrology, Aries is the baby, Leo is the adolescent or the child, and Sagittarius is like the old man with a pipe in his mouth at the, on the rocking chair, looking at the world, crying and laughing for it at the same time, which would probably be me at some point. But Leo it's sometimes it's the me show. It's about me. It's all about me. Enough about what you think. What do you think about me? It can happen. And sometimes that can get a bit painful, to be honest. It can be a little bit like self-centered. Like a teenager is like their only perception of the world is themselves, being dramatic. I've even seen like temper tantrums. I remember I had Leo friends at the time, and they'd like run into the bedroom and slam the door and be like, you don't understand me. And it's all so dramatic. And it's just nothing, it's just nonsense. But yes, a lot of Dharma plays out in the fifth house. So Dharma is connected to the frequency of what we put out and what we get back. It's the purpose, and fire plays out in Dharma. So Dharma is quite blessed. A lot of blessings happen in the fifth house. Being naturally good looking, being naturally very charismatic, it can happen here. Physiologically, you'll see a lot of physical placements with Leos. Their hair is their world. That's their main. How they look, how they feel. If they don't look good, they don't feel good. All right, so it's a lot. So I might go through some of the interpretations, perhaps, where we'll look at a little bit of the signs, and maybe we'll go with, if you've got a fifth house, if you're an Aries fifth house cusp or an Aries fifth house placement, this will be someone that will be like double the inner child, double the fire. Sometimes can be a little bit like, too focused on winning. But yes, I mean, the passion that I love about fire signs is they want to get things done. You know, we don't want to look about it. We don't want to talk about it. We don't want to analyze it. We just want to get it on. Let's get it on. Let's fucking go. So there's an adventure there. So if you've got an Aries in the fifth house, that's someone that has a lot of aspirations to start a lot of things. It's very physical. So it would need a lot of physical, strenuous exertion and exercise to burn off excess energy. So being competitive and playing in sport would be a awesome thing to do. Or acting. If it's a Taurus in the fifth house, this is more about sensuality. This is more about security and finance and creating a space where you're seen from how others might see your projection of materiality. All right, so making sure, you know, Leo in the fifth house can make money. Fifth house placements are positive. It's a benefic placement, which means it's beneficial. It's not malefic. It's not bad. It's good. Remember, opposites always have problems in astrology. So a lot of Leo placements that are opposition within Aquarius can be problematic. Okay, Aquarians are cold at times. They're quite alien-like, quite complex. Yeah, and Leo is quite straightforward, and it's not about community. It's about the self. So it's these oppositions. When we see oppositions in charts, when I look at them in charts, they become problematic at times for people. Bit of a battle between the head and the heart can play out depending on what planet it's in. All right, so if it's, say, a fifth house in Gemini, this is like moving quick. It's all in the mind. So flirtation happens here. Sexting happens here with their partners. You've got to keep them in those games, in that inner child play. It's got to move quick. It's got to be fun. It's got to, you know, be hyper in the mind. You know, a Gemini in the fifth house won't necessarily go for someone particularly that's overly attractive. They're not really obsessed with Venusian Venus placements, like beautiful people. They'll go for someone that is really like can stimulate their brain in sex and in the mind. You know, a lot of interesting dynamics. Just by the way, a lot of interesting dynamics can play out with a Gemini placement in the fifth house. You will see a lot of you will see some, not so much committed sexual relationships, but you will see a lot of polyamory can play out here, a lot of open relationships, a lot of flings play out here, a lot of very quick flash in the pan relationships of people coming and going play out with a Gemini in the fifth house. You know, that can even play out for a Gemini sun and a Leo moon. You know, I've seen that a lot. It's very spontaneous, all right? It's not as sensual as what it was in the second house with Taurus. So Gemini in the fifth house is intellect. It's ruled by Mercury, but it's playing out in a public way. The fifth house is a public house, much like Capricorn in the 10th house. It's a public house. So whatever they're doing, it's out. So it could be a librarian. You know, a lot of Gemini people are about the acquisition of knowledge in a public place, like literally in a public house. This can play out. Okay, so Cancer I did mention, that would be more of a Saturnial placement, very nurturing in their creativity. Like a lot of Cancer parents that have fifth house kids would really nurture their kids to do acting or do, you know, to express themselves in a way that makes them feel authentic and safe. If it's Virgo playing out through the fifth house, this can be more about attention to detail. Virgo people tend to be very analytical and strategic in their plan, in how they are deliberately looking at concepts and critiquing things. All right, so it's mercurial energy as well. So it's very conversation based. I do see a lot of Virgo placements playing out as teachers in the fifth house. A lot of Virgos can be teachers, or they work with children as well. A lot of school teachers that are in primary school, they're all Virgo placements. If it's a Leo sitting in the fifth house, well, then you're going to have someone who is going to be all about entertainment. You know, a lot of great ideas come through their brain really hard and just go straight back out the door again. So at times you've got to make sure, if you have that Leo, Leo sun or Leo moon, Leo rising in the fifth house placements, then it's going to be, make sure that you finish what you start. You don't just, start a couple of things and, have your finger in every pie. You have to really see something through to its conclusion. All right. But yes, if it was the Virgo in the fifth house can sometimes be a judge or a jury as well. Someone like a lawyer, like a prosecuting attorney. That can happen there a lot. They're trying to figure things out in the mind. If it's a Libra in the fifth house, well, Libra is the seventh house ruler of Venus. So that's about more like relationships. So friendships, relationships play out a lot there as well. So marriages and partnerships. When I see a chart like a Libra sun, Libra rising with a lot of fifth house placements, it's a lot of marriages and divorces happen here. It's like a bit of a kiss of death. Hot tip, when I see a Libra sun with a fifth house placement, this can often indicate to me a second marriage will be their best marriage, not their first marriage. Libra people tend to get it wrong in their first marriage, as so do Taurus people as well. Don't know why I say that, but I do see that quite a lot. But yes, I mean, Libra can be very nurturing and supportive. That's how they are if they're really committed. And yeah, I mean, it's about beauty. It's about fairness. Sometimes Libra people will be wallpaper to a fifth house person. The fifth house person will be the breadwinner, the one that brings home the bacon, and the Libra energy is like the Stedford wife that will cook the bacon that they bring home. That type of thing. Lots of romance happens in Libra in the fifth house though, because the fifth house also does rule in being very romantico. All right, Scorpio, let's have a look. So Scorpio in the fifth house will be very sexual. It will be, it's a bit more amped up. It's a bit more like in your face. This is a type of placement that isn't going to hide away in the shadows. So it would be someone that will be learning how to monetize entertainment or monetize your projection. So people that photograph very well, because Leo, fifth house people photograph well. They want to be in the photos. They want to be a model. They want to be an actor. They want to sing. They're loud. So when you have that with that Scorpio placement, you'll have that in the eighth house against the fifth house. You'll have people that will be like taking their pain and making something out of it and then monetizing it to the world to make content out of it. All right, so that's how that will play out. And it's very interesting. So that private Scorpio side, that's like, they'd be maybe even a little bit more, at times could be a bit more like behind the scenes if they don't want to be in the center. All right, because arachnoids in the Scorpion don't usually like to be front and center. They like to be more creating it in the background quietly. You might see a lot of performance artists, in this type of thing, in that type of placement. All right, Sagittarius in the ninth house, I did mention, that's a lot of travel. It's a lot of culture. It's a lot of like fixation on movement and psychological and like philosophical thinking. So this will be someone that's very creative and probably has ADHD. They get bored very, very quick. So they'll be up all night working on an album, working on a painting, working on that new script. Very adventurous, and they like to go in the taboo. Sagittarius in the ninth house is thinking about things that have not been done before. That is exciting to them in this world. Things that have been done before, that doesn't really interest them. So they want to rock the boat. They want to have fun as well. Lots of, food, travel, culture, backpacking, offloading responsibilities, and Sagittarius in the fifth house can be a little bit slutty. It's a little bit of like a hooker, in some ways, because they break a lot of hearts. Ninth house placements in Sagittarius in the fifth house or Sagittarius in the fifth house can be people that come into your life, promise you this magical world, and you feel romantically connected, and then they disappear and you never hear from them again. That happens. Happens all the time. kind of ruin people, actually, these Sagittarians. They just ruin people. That's because it's like they're so good. Oh. All right, and Capricorn in the fifth house, how that would play out with someone who's probably a little bit more like the Taurus and the Scorpion, a bit more monetizing of things, monetizing of creativity and being very realistic and grounded and trying to bring something as an art form in the fifth house into a book that is like historically true, something that isn't fiction. Sort of like people, Capricorn people with fifth house placements, I do know a couple, and one of them was a man who does very detailed biography, short films and animation on people's lives, and he's dabbled in directing. So he's like, he knows how to work a crowd, get a result out of actors, because like a lot of directors actually were actors. So a lot of fifth house placement, you'll find people that are directors or people that make movies, that film things and build scripts up. They have a lot of fifth house placements, and they'll play with their actors and bring out this, childish side to them where everyone's in that relaxed flow state of creation and making something. But Capricorn will figure out a way to make money out of it. Believe me, they will. And they'll probably be a little bit obsessed with like structure on a film set, in a workplace. Like, I'm here, you're here, this is what I do, this is what you do, don't cross my line, that type of thing. Levels in a workplace is like, hardcore with Saturn placements in Capricorn, especially because Capricorn is the 10th house, and the 10th house rules the midheaven. Full body commitment to their work. And I respect that. And then I would probably say, like, for an Aquarius in the fifth house, whether you're Aquarius, if you've got an Aquarius in the fifth house, that's someone that is very innovative and rebellious in that fifth house. So it's like a lot of like entrepreneurial people in the world will have this wacky, contemporary, intellectual depth to them, because the sign of Aquarius in the 11th house is ruled by Uranus. And then you've got that, playing out in a public house in the fifth house. So that would be someone who needs to make an entrance. I think Lady Gaga actually has that time she came out of the egg, wore a meat dress, so they're always moving and changing their style, and you don't know what they're going to do. It's got to be out of the box, out of this world. Moving to different countries, different culture can happen a lot. Makeup artists happen a lot with this type of placement. Whatever the world's doing in their entertainment world, they are doing the opposite. If horror films are in, the director with an Aquarius 11th house placement in the fifth house will be someone that will do a romance. Whatever the world's doing, they will do the opposite. They don't want to fit in terms of how they project their creativity to the world. All right, so that's awesome. A lot of different genres can play out with an Aquarius in the fifth house. And then Pisces, good old mate Pisces in the fifth house, is someone that has a lot of deep faith and beauty towards mankind, because it's like Pisces is the oldest sign in the zodiac. It's heading on its way out back to the spiritual world. And the fifth house is the child. And it's about having hope and beauty and fun and being in your inner child. So the problem around Pisces in the fifth house is they have a hard time staying on course and not being distracted, because they do get very destabilized by all of the energies around them. But if a Pisces can learn to transform themselves through focus, their creative expression will play out very well in the fifth house if they can focus, knuckle down, and just get it done. But, Neptune is the ruler of, Pisces, and Pisces is all about imagination. So I'm guessing things, if you're a Pisces with a lot of Leo placements, your work will be very otherworldly. You'll have your own style. It will be probably a bit dark. A lot of darkness comes up from Uranus, or from Neptune. Neptune comes up like it's the bottom of the sea. So the bottom of the sea playing out in expression could be a bit tortured. Van Gogh type of stuff, like cutting off your ear, like scarification, suffering for your art. Same as Scorpio. Scorpio in the 8th house can do that as well. They put themselves in positions that they have to hold that punishes them. They've got a relationship with pain and how that plays out in the world through expressing themselves in their art and their emotions. So yeah, there you go. Spirituality. Like if it was a Pisces in the 5th house, it would be someone that is very spiritual, that may do like yoga or will have some spiritual practice that will come out into the physical world in that 5th house placement. So yeah, I hope you've enjoyed this. I could go on and on and on. But yes, I do have we'll probably do a Q&A soon, because I've been collecting some really interesting astrology questions from the comments. Someone asked me, my fifth house placement is empty. What does this mean? Yeah, I've got a few questions that I can answer. Someone also asked me, solar eclipses are happening in the 5th house. You give the best explanations. Can you please explain this? Thank you. I will be doing a Q&A. So if you've got any questions you'd like to ask me about your chart specifically, why don't you just leave them in the comments below, and then I'll just save up all of the questions and do like a rapid fire answer and get into all of the questions. So maybe that might be my next video, a Q&A video talking about astrological questions that you might have. So if you'd like to pick my brain, I'd love to hear from you. If you'd like to book me for an astrological reading, please go ahead and do it. And I can't wait to tear up your chart. Lots and lots of love. I hope you've enjoyed this video of me explaining all about the 5th house. Bye.